Welcome back to Grid Drop. Today we're back in EA WRC to drive an absolute monster of a rally car, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 6. Since this car is just so good, I figured we should make it a little bit more challenging and pick a mostly gravel 17-kilometer stage at Rally Estonia, and to do it at night. The Mitsubishi Lancer is extremely iconic both in terms of rally and car culture. As a 300 horsepower front-engine car with a 6-speed manual transmission, this car is a blast to drive. Before we get into the stage, I'm just doing some minor adjustments to the car's setup in order to have it suited perfectly to me. And now with my beautiful Porsche 944 socks on, we're ready to go. Alright, here we are at Rally Estonia. At the beginning of the stage, we have 17 kilometers to go, and we're going to be doing it at night, as I said earlier. So this one is going to be a little interesting. There's definitely a lot of fun corners on this stage. There's a lot of big jumps, a lot of hairpins, and then square rights and square lefts, so we're definitely in for a treat. You can see on the right side of the screen I have my pedal cam and my shifter and handbrake cam. I did that once before, and it's I think it's pretty cool to see that on the video. But 5 red lights are coming on. We're into first gear, pulling the handbrake, on the gas, and releasing the handbrake right about now, and we're off. 17 kilometers to go into the night and in the middle of a forest, so hopefully we don't end up in a tree. Really good launch off the line there. This car is all-wheel drive, so that definitely helped us out. Already into 5th gear, just as I say that, shifting down to 2nd gear, pulling the handbrake around the hay bale, and that's the first square left of many on this stage. So this car is actually pretty well balanced for a stage like this with gravel. There is a good amount of traction, and the car is just pretty well balanced throughout the entirety of the stage. Going a little bit wide right there, hitting one of those poles on the exit of that corner, drifting out wide again, really messy, kind of a messy start to this stage. And luckily we keep it on track and keep it out of the trees, which is at least good for now. Good thing we have those Porsche 944 socks on. They're adding a lot more horsepower, so we'll be able to fly down the straight a little bit faster. 6 right and a 4 left coming up. The 4 left is going to have a little bit slight braking for the 4 left right there, and kind of drifting out wide but keeping it on the track. This section can get a little tricky, very, very bumpy through here. It's really hard to keep the car's weight in balance. You can see going a little bit wide right there. This run is definitely a little messy so far. Got to clean it up for the rest of the stage, but this is really tricky right here. If you go completely flat out, it's hard to keep it out of the trees, so you have to kind of modulate the throttle a little bit just to get over those bumps without sending yourself completely off the track. So we get through there, and now approaching a left entry chicane, braking now for the chicane, shifting down to 2nd gear, and these ones can be a little bit tricky. They look to be a little bit further away sometimes than they actually are, and you can end up not braking enough and kind of slamming into it. 3 right here, and that's no issue at all for this car. It just eats it right up. I'm finding for the 3 rights you barely even have to brake. You lift and a slight tap of the brakes, maybe a downshift or 2, and you're already in a pretty good position for that corner in terms of speed and the proper gear. But flying through here, a little bit sketchy. Again, a little bit of a messy run at the beginning of this stage here. So hopefully we can use the next like 12 kilometers or so to clean it up a bit, but really pushing through here, going so fast. It's really hard to even keep the car centered on the middle of the track right here. Going a little bit wide just on the grass right there, and luckily that wasn't too much of a mistake. 4 right approaching, slight tap of the brakes, and that's no problem. A little bit wide right there, but luckily we make it through. So very quick through here. It's mostly straight, a lot of 6 right, 6 lefts, and pretty much just keeping the throttle pinned to the floor. 3 right approaching, slight tap of the brakes, and this car is just going to eat this one right up. Drifting out wide right there, absolutely perfect looking drift, and we can keep our speed through the corner, which is what rallying is all about. So far we've started to clean up our act a little bit. Really flying on this section of the stage right now. This is pretty much completely straight. Going over that small jump, and now we have a square right approaching. On the brakes now, shifting down probably to 2nd gear, pulling the handbrake now, and around this hay bale, a nice looking drift right there, keeping the speed through the corner, and luckily keeping it nice and tidy, not going into that ditch on the left side of the track, which would definitely be a little bit troublesome. Another use of the handbrake around the hairpin right there, and that's 2 pretty good looking drifts right there, keeping it nice and clean, keeping it on the track, and not having to worry about hitting anything or going off into that ditch, which definitely would have been pretty bad. So gonna keep it pushing, throttle down now, and again absolutely flooring it through this straight section of the stage. This car is really just eating up everything that we're throwing its way. We haven't really made any major mistakes. There's been a couple close calls here and there, but we've kept our footing so far. A 1 right is approaching, braking for the 1 right, out into 2nd gear, pulling the handbrake, and then shifting to 1st gear mid-drift, which definitely helps us keep the speed through the corner, and already back up into 5th gear, And going to be 6th gear in a second here. On this straight now, slight right approaching, and we can really just keep it flat for this corner. And there's not really much that we can throw at this car that it won't be able to handle. Left entry chicane coming up, and this one again we're going to go nice and slow just to make sure we get through there with no damage to the car whatsoever. But we should be making pretty good time here compared to the rest of the field. At least we haven't really had any major mistakes. Just a couple minor things here and there. So I'd rather be safe than sorry with the chicanes. Make sure I don't slam into them. Just go a little bit slow into the chicanes and just make sure we don't have any damage on the car. But 5 left and then a 4 right approaching. Again, absolutely eating up the 3s and the 4s without any issue. Barely even braking for them, just a very slight tap of the brakes. And the rest of the car kind of just figures itself out. Square left approaching, shifting down to 2nd gear, pulling the handbrake around the hay bale, out wide and accelerating on exit. That was a perfect use of the handbrake. And a pretty well executed drift. Already up into 5th gear. This section of the stage is super fast, absolutely flying. This car is it's pretty fast, but it's probably the 944 socks that are making it so much quicker, adding all that horsepower. But small jump right here, not even going to brake for it. And now we're going to start slamming on the brakes right here, shifting down to 3rd gear, going to pitch the car into the left right here. This section is very loose. There's not a lot of grip through here. I guess the gravel is just a little bit looser. Cutting those corners pretty much perfectly. A jump is approaching right here. Getting a little bit of air, and then a little bit jealous, I guess, going a little too fast into that jump, and a little bit of contact with that kind of grass wall on exit. 1 left, pulling the handbrake right there, followed by another jump with a 2 right that tightens up on exit to a 1 right. Going to pull their handbrake right here and drop a wheel off the gravel. Perfect drift right there. And now we're going to cut these corners as much as we possibly can. There is a ditch to the inside, so we got to make sure we're not a little too greedy and take up too much space and end up in that ditch. Luckily, we make it through with no problem. Pulling the handbrake around that 1 left right there. Unfortunately, could have been a little bit faster through there, but you know, you win some, you lose some. So this section of the track is a lot of big air, a lot of big jumps. So we got to make sure we don't go a little too wide on the jumps right there. They can be a little bit sketchy. The biggest thing is to make sure you don't land sideways. You don't want to be sideways in the air. It's very hard to control upon landing, and you can see an example of it right there, barely keeping it on the track. Luckily not smashing into a crowd of like 100 people on the right. Yet another big jump approaching, a lot of big air right here, and luckily landing perfectly straight with no problems whatsoever. This one is actually a little bit tricky. It's a 6 right pretty much as soon as the jump opens up. Gonna try to enter it a little bit sideways to compensate for that 6 right. We do that perfectly, braking before that jump into a 3 left, and that's exactly how I would have wanted that to go. So that was pretty perfectly executed. If you ask me. If you ask other people, I don't know. But 2 right there. This car eats it up, no problem. Already into 4th gear. Shifting into 5th gear. Another jump is approaching. And these ones are a little bit easier. Less air and on a straight track, so not really too much to worry about. Braking hard for this 3 right now. Really going wide here. Gonna have to pull the car into the left. Unfortunately, misshifting. Stuck in neutral. Have to get the car in gear. Finally, we get it going. And that was definitely our biggest mistake of the stage so far. The car was in neutral. I was slamming on the gas. It wasn't going anywhere. I was wondering what the hell was happening. And the car was not in gear. So that was definitely the biggest mistake we made. Another jump. And we're going to really push now to try to make up that lost time. Really sending it on that jump. Overcorrecting on the exit. Luckily, keep it out of those bushes and the trees on the left. And we live to fight another kilometer or 2. But yeah, that was definitely the biggest mistake so far. Definitely losing a little bit of time, but hopefully we clean it up for the rest of the stage. If you take a look at the progress bar on the left, there's actually not that much left to go. We're probably at about 15 or so, maybe 14 kilometers. So we've actually done, you know, most of the stage. I believe that 7/8 of the stage or whatever is left. But so far, that that one misshift being our only mistake is not too bad. But anyway, braking down into 2nd gear, pulling the handbrake, and that's yet another really good drift, keeping the speed through the corner, and that's a really good way to make up that lost time from that big mistake. 3 left right here, just eating that up, and we're just gonna really send it the rest of the stage just to make up for that lost time. So gonna keep the throttle pinned, keep it flat out, and hopefully we avoid any major mistakes from now on. Speaking of mistakes, a little bit wide right there. I think making a little bit of contact actually with the left rear wheel against that kind of rock wall or that little hill or whatever you would call that barrier. A little bit wide right here yet again. We started out messy and we're going to end up messy, I guess. A couple mistakes at the end here, and luckily no damage to the car or anything like that. Just a little bit wide of the track. We redeem ourselves with that jump, keep getting nice and straight, nice and even through the midair, and we land perfectly balanced, followed by a 4 left, slightly braking into that 4 left around the hay bale, drifting out wide, and another jump is approaching, a little bit off balance in midair right there. Luckily, keeping it on the gravel. That was a close call. That could have been a lot worse than it actually was. A huge jump right here, landing on that front left tire, and luckily no damage to the car, nothing, and we land perfectly straight and keep the wheels turning, and 5 right and 5 left. Should be the last couple corners. Real drift right there, keeping it out wide, and just letting those back wheels spin up as much as we can. 3 right is our final corner of the lap. Gonna try to keep it as clean as we possibly can. Unfortunately, a little bit messy through that last section of this stage, and we set an 8:58. And hopefully that's enough for first place. We're going to have to see. There was definitely some room for improvement right there. We had a messy start and a messy end, but the middle was pretty good. So no major mistakes, just a couple minor errors here and there. But we'll have to see if that was enough for first place. And it looks like first place is ours. I guess those major mistakes weren't major enough compared to the rest of the field. Luckily, we had those Porsche 944 socks on, and they added some extra boost, some extra horsepower, and overall made this car even better to drive. So that's a first place finish in Rally Estonia, 17 kilometers on gravel. That was a pretty fun stage. If you enjoy watching videos like this, if you like the wheel cam and the, not the wheel cam, the pedal cam and the shifter cam, if you like those, you want to see more WRC, leave a comment down below. I really like making these videos. Unfortunately, they don't really get a lot of views, but they're a lot of fun to make. So if you want to see more of these, please leave a comment below. And if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.